So tonight's video is BLTs, and this time it's with a little bit of a twist. We're adding some goat cheese and honey to it. I'm also going to show you how you can really easily cook bacon in your convection oven. That way you can avoid all the splatter from cooking it on the stovetop. Is it recording? All right, so BLTs have always been one of my personal favorites. Billy was never big on them. I think I finally convinced him to try it. Like, I had to reinforce it has mayonnaise and bacon. Why would you not want to eat this?
But it's missing like the sandwich. Like, where's like the main part of the sandwich? It's got condiments
it
only.
It has bacon, and bacon should be its own food group. But anyway, I've always been a big fan of them. And I also find that if you are traveling and if you are stopped at a restaurant that, say, has maybe questionable menu items, typically they can make a BLT, and it's a pretty safe bet to go with. You can't, well, it'd be kind of hard to mess it up. Anyway, when I got this BLT one time from this restaurant called Dorme back in South Tampa, it's like my mom's favorite sandwich bistro. They did it with the addition of goat cheese and honey, and it just adds something really special to it. And so now most of the time when we make our BLTs, this is how we make them. So we're going to show you how. So first up is the bacon. So because it is the star of the show, I do like to try to get a really nice thick cut bacon, and the Wright's brand is actually one of our favorites. So whenever we can find it, we do pick this up. We are currently camping without sewer hookups, so I'm just trying to be a little bit more mindful of the amount of dishes we have to wash and clean up. And so, you know, cooking bacon on the stovetop is plenty easy, but it can result in a lot of splatter. But you can actually cook bacon in your oven, and it does take a little bit longer to fully cook, but we can line some sheets with foil. It'll make it really easy to clean up, and it actually cooks the bacon nice and flat, which is perfect for sandwiches. So we're gonna get this started. The other thing is the goat cheese, which luckily we were able to find this at the grocery store because there's not a lot of grocery options in the UP. We'll get to that in a minute. The goat cheese, I'm gonna go ahead and let this sit out a little bit. That way it can just start to soften up while we're getting everything else ready. All right, so I have got we've got these little 1/8 sheet pans that work really well because I can actually stack 2 of them in the convection oven. I do have to cut the bacon in half, which is, it's fine. It works fine for the sandwiches. And if we have leftovers, which we never have leftovers of bacon, you can just reheat it for breakfast or something. I've lined them with foil, which is just gonna make cleanup that much easier. So, when you're cooking bacon in your convection oven, and this is the same way I used to cook it in the oven at home, you actually put it in while it is preheating. So I'm not preheating it right now. We're gonna start it when we actually put them in there. So right now I'm just gonna cut these in half and just get them laid out on our trays. And you can actually overlay these a little bit when you're putting them out on the pan because they will start to shrink up as they cook. So we've got all of our bacon laid out. Like I said, we are gonna go ahead and put this in the convection oven, and we are going to let it preheat with the bacon in it. If you were doing this at home in a regular oven, typically you would leave it in the oven, let it preheat, and then once it came up to temperature, you would add on another like 15 to 20 minutes. And that's usually doing it at around like probably 350. I always kept an eye on it just because depending on how you want your bacon done, if you want it to be a little bit crispier or whatever, it's a little bit of a personal preference. I do find doing it in the convection oven, it does take a little bit longer. So I know for sure it's not gonna cook during this preheating. Once it dings and tells us it's preheated, I'm gonna add probably like 30 minutes, but I'm gonna check on it every like 10 to 15 minutes just to be sure. So while the bacon's going, I'm just gonna go ahead and slice up our tomatoes just so they can sit for a little bit. We are furthering our way up into the UP. Last week I told you guys we had just made it into St. Ignace, and that's right over the Mackinac Bridge. We are now, I don't know, like kind of like right in the middle of the UP. We're over by Lake Manistee, I think it's called. But anyway, it is absolutely beautiful up here. Some of the provisions are slightly few and far between. So Billy did all the grocery shopping last week just to kind of make things a little bit easier for us this week, you'll see like we got bagged lettuce because that was really the only option for it. You know how much I don't like bagged lettuce, but
yeah, otherwise it was iceberg.
Yeah, and I'll talk about lettuce when we do the lettuce, but anyway, so we did make it over to Pictured Rocks. Last night we did one of their sunset cruises. It leaves out of Munising, which is like, I don't know, 50 minutes away from where we're at. But then they take you on a cruise by all of the Pictured Rocks so that you can, see them. Doing it at sunset, I would say, was absolutely beautiful because it was the perfect lighting. We got a lot of really good shots that we'll share. We were also fortunate that it was great weather. So not only was it not raining, but the seas were actually pretty calm. It sounds like earlier in the morning they had actually had to cancel some of the boat rides just because you can imagine Lake Superior, like it's like an ocean. And so if it's pretty rough, they'll cancel them. But anyway, it was really pretty. They love tomato. Okay, guys. All right, so we've got our tomatoes cut up. I do still like to season them with some salt and pepper just to give them some extra flavor. You can use whatever kind of tomatoes you want. Sometimes I'll use like smaller plum aroma tomatoes. They work just fine if you can find some really great heirloom ones. Sometimes they can have more flavor, but they also they look prettier because you got different colors, but really whatever kind of tomato you like. So it just dinged that it has preheated, so I'm just gonna take a look. Yeah, definitely still needs to cook. I'm gonna go ahead and add 30 minutes to this and tell it to restart. I don't know that I'm gonna need the full 30 minutes, but again, it's just easier to have more time on it and then we can just pause it every so often just to check on it. All right, so it's been about 15 minutes, so I'm just gonna check on it. And the top tray is going a little bit faster than the bottom one, which sometimes happens because part of why the convection oven works is getting all the airflow around it. You can see this one's just going a little bit faster, so I'm gonna put that one on the bottom, put this one on the top, and then we will keep going for just a little bit longer before we check on it. Okay, so we just pulled out one of the trays of bacon. I said that the one that was sitting up on the rack, like it cooks a little bit faster, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put these over onto the paper towel just so they can drain a little bit. It does take longer to cook these in the convection oven, but in some ways it's nice. Like you can kind of leave it and forget it and get some other stuff done. Like I wash dishes in the meantime. And also you don't have all of the splatter to deal with. So anyway, we're just gonna keep an eye on the last one that's in here and then we will hopefully be ready to assemble everything. All right, so timer went off. I think these are probably, yeah, this is good. So I'm gonna take these out. We'll just put them over onto the paper towel, make some room. And then we're gonna get our bread toasted. So for the bread, you can do whatever kind you want. I don't typically like super thick cut breads just because it makes it a little bit harder to eat. And so Billy actually found just some nice, like it's a country buttermilk bread, but we want to toast it. And so we do happen to carry a toaster with us. If you don't, you could toast it in your oven. You could even toast it in the pan. But we definitely want that like crunchy kind of bread. The other piece that I can go ahead and get ready is our lettuce. And so for the lettuce, I've told you before, I really don't like bagged lettuce just because I feel like it tastes like the things that they clean it with. But we are up in the UP and we are somewhat limited on groceries. And so this is what we were able to get. Now, part of the reason is because I did want a butter lettuce. And so the options I think were like iceberg, there was maybe even romaine. But I think when you're talking, no?
No, it was iceberg.
It was iceberg.
Or you got bagged romaine.
Iceberg serves a purpose for certain things. But when you're doing a BLT, again, it's one of the stars of the show. And so you want to make sure like it's just a good lettuce that's got some flavor behind it. But I think it's also important that it is a little bit of a, personally, I think a softer lettuce versus like a romaine is just going to be a little too thick, a little too crunchy. But again, to each their own. So for this, we're just gonna do some of the butter lettuce while we wait on this to toast up. All right, we are ready to start assembling. So the other bread just popped out, but I'm gonna go ahead and do the bottoms. And so I just like to put a nice kind of block of the goat cheese on here, and it's gonna, we've softened it, so it's going to smear pretty well. And then next we're gonna drizzle it with our honey. Let's do a drizzle of this on the bottom. All right, put our lettuce on here. I'm just gonna grab some of the, what I feel like are the softer pieces. This actually didn't work out too bad. Then I'm gonna do our tomatoes. These are pretty big slices, but I'm still gonna do 2. And then we are going to top it with our bacon. Now you can pile on as much bacon as you want. I usually do like 4 halves, so 2 pieces of bacon each. And then we're just gonna top these and then cut them in half. Stop eating bacon. This is why we never have any leftover bacon. I try to make extra so I have it for breakfast, but no.
Good.
And you can see we're also doing paper plates again because dishes. But okay, that is our BLT with goat cheese and honey. Let's try it out. So, looks super nice and thick. So all the flavors you normally expect with a BLT, but then you just get that extra kind of creamy tanginess from the goat cheese. And then you can taste just a little bit of sweetness from the honey. It adds something extra for the BLTs. So it's a great way to be able to kind of spice them up if you're doing them for family.